Hey y'all, welcome to another account review. Now, you may have remembered me saying last time how that was my free-to-play account, right? And that I have a main account that I spend money on. Well, this is that account. And, my god, I've spent a lot of money on this account. And yes, my other account is free-to-play for those of you that are just not agreeing with it. That account is free-to-play, I assure you. I know it's bullshit. I know. This account will not look like that in comparison, I don't think. It looks more free to play than that account does, which is ironic, but anyhow, I digress, right? So, starting off, let's start with when this account was made. This account was made in version 1.0. Yes, around the same time the dinosaurs lived. No, this account is a 1.0 account, as evidenced by, if I go down to Amber, that says October 4th, 2020. So yeah, this is a 1.0 account. I started the game when Venti and Klee banner were just rolling out. Of course, I don't have Klee because I don't want her. Just to give you an idea of when I'm currently recording this, I mean, I'll probably post this video like tomorrow or the day after, but I'm recording this when the Navia and Ayato banner are up with 9 days left to go in version 4.3. Without further ado, in this video, I'll just go over my character builds, my world exploration, my inventory, and all that stuff. Why I built certain characters the way I did, and then go on from there, right? Abyss progress, I don't think it needs to be said, but I'll go through that first. So, as far as Abyss progress goes, I have 36 start every rotation in the past year. I think the furthest it goes back is probably December of 2021 was when I started like consistently 36 starring. Didn't really get a good handle on team comps and characters and all that until like a solid year in. I did not like most of the OP characters, or again, I got them on my alt, right? So that says a lot about that. In terms of world exploration, I have most of a lot of areas 100%ed. So the entirety of Mondstadt 100%, entirety of Liyue 100%, plus Chasm Underground, entirety of Inazuma 100%. Like, I was an exploration fiend, right? So I would just play the game, go places, go explore, grab chests, grab Prima Gems, grab Mora, because I was extremely poor back then. There was a lot of things I was poor in back then, right? Like Mora, EXP, a lot of the stuff. I just didn't have resources at all, so I need to do exploring to get them. Sumeru is, for the most part, 100%, except for the desert, because the desert sucks and it's pain and I hate it, and I haven't even done the quest for this area yet. But yeah, and Fontaine, I'm working on the rest of them, but you know, time got hands, and I can't exactly sit down and play the game like non-stop like I used to. But yeah, that's the world exploration stuff and Abyss out of the way. Let's have a look at my inventory. I mean, while there are certainly more things here, most of them are permanent banner stuff. So, you know, most of them is stuff that you can just get over time. So, like, there's a decent assortment, but then there's the whole list. Like, you see how small the scroll bar is? My god. I pull a lot, right? So there's a lot of stuff here on top of, like, the 6,000 crystals. Artifacts, I don't have a whole lot. I only have, like, 267. That's including, like, 4 stars and some of those. Now, let's get into the characters. Where to start but my main himself. Tartaglia is my favorite character to play as in this game. Honestly, like, awesome mechanics, really powerful, fastest Hydro application. What more can you really want, right? 73 209, almost a 1-3 with 130 recharge. He's holding Polo Star. Yeah, his best weapon. He does everything that it needs the wielder to do, so it buffs him a lot. And plus, it just looks really nice, right? It looks really nice. Yeah, Polo Star, really good weapon, 33% crit rate. Now, my artifact set is a little bit weird, but I'll tell you why. His best set is still Nymph Stream, and especially so because I have Polo Star. But the way my stats are allocated on these artifacts, it becomes less important. And I'll tell you why. Now, sources will tell you that his second best option for Nymph's Dream is 2 Hydra to attack. But my stats do weird things to the math, and it's to the point where this is actually my best combination of sets, besides Nymph Stream, but I don't want to farm Nymph Stream, so this is basically my best. 2-set attack is not better for me because I already get more than what the 2-set offers through my substats. I have 11% on my Goblet and 11% here as well, so I already overtake what that set can offer me. This is my best set of artifacts, considering all the substats I have on these pieces as well, right? Because these are insane substats, especially on my Sands and on my Plume. Can't exactly switch that. He's at C0 because his constellations suck, and I can't even try to defend them. Besides maybe C4, and that's kind of it, really. Because I mean, C3 is the biggest like damage bump, but C4 is the overall like utility buff that you want. But besides that, his constellations are really bad, so I'm not even gonna try to pull them. But however, I did triple crown him crown him because he's my guy. Obviously, if you were to crown anything, it would be his skill, because that is the majority of this damage. You're gonna get Riptide Slashes all the time. That's his whole gimmick, right? And then, I mean, I already released a whole guide on him, so if you want to know more about him, you can check that out. But I just triple crowned him because I like him a lot. There's nothing more to that. I mean, you really shouldn't crown his normal attack, but I mean, I just did it for me. Besides that, though, yeah, he's my guy. He's my main. They play him in international a lot, and he's really good. I guess from here, I can go down the list of the characters I have built. So, I guess we can start from the left side. Navia, just got her. So she's not really all that well built, but she does have these stats. 74, 238 with 129 recharge, basically. 2100 attack on Serpent Spine R3, because I don't have Verdict. I do want to get Verdict, but I'm not going to spend on it because I had to shell out for a single copy of her, so I'm not doing that. Artifact set right now, yeah, I'm still in the process of building her, but just as a placeholder, or it might even be really close to being pretty damn comparable anyways, is 2 set attack and 2 set golden troop. Here are the stats if you want to just quickly look over them and pause. This is insanely good for a circlet. Constellation 0, again, I had to shell out for a single copy of her, so that ain't happening. Talents right now, I do plan to triple crown her, but right now she's at 485. Of course, her skill is very good, does a lot of damage, and, you know, makes up for the fact that she doesn't really have any multiplicative reaction. So that's really good. She's really fun. She's just really cool. I like her character overall anyways in lore. Speaking of the character I like in lore, Furina. Furina, I mean, you've seen my build before if you checked out the guide, but this is basically the all-out build. My standard build. 39k HP basically. 73 203. I know I'm undercutting on her stats a little bit, but artifact luck is painful, and I can't exactly get any better stats without artifact luck being, you know, my artifact RNG being better. 155 recharge, which is enough for my mono hydro to work properly. So, and, you know, a lot, like, enough in most cases, I would say. She's rocking her signature Splendor of Tranquil Waters. Not much more to say, but a really good weapon for her. Yeah, I mean, Imagine her, got the drip. And you know what, for Furina, honestly, she might just become my favorite character in lore. Like, one of them, at least. I'd say, because, dude, that Archon quest, if you know, you know. And I'll get her C2 when she swings around again. Because, man, this C2 is broken. I mean, she's perfectly fine at C0, don't get me wrong, right? She's perfectly fine at C0. You don't need to go for constellations on her whatsoever. But should you? I mean, I already mentioned it in my guide, but C2 is amazing. Talent-wise, double crown because she is queen. I mean, C1 especially buffs this up, so that's another reason for me. She's on 4-set golden troop, and here are the stats. They are pretty mid. They work for what they are, but, you know, could obviously be better. But, you know, artifact RNG has it out for me, so I don't know how much better they can be with my luck, but, you know, we'll see. Next up, Zhongli. I didn't get him until version like 2.4. Something like that, right? When he came back with Ganyu, when Inazuma came out. Because at launch, he was really not the greatest. He was okay at best, but like now he's just insane because he has the fattest shield in the game. And so I built him to maximize his shield. So 46k HP, 43 crit rate because I'm running Favonius Lance on him, and 134 recharge, it's whatever. Most of the time you can just get it back passively, right? And like, it doesn't really matter because he's a 40 cost burst. I mean, still have some on him regardless because just particles and whatnot can be weird, but this is generally okay for most of the situations I put him into. Weapon again, Favonius Lance R5 because I don't have Staff of Homa, and even if I did, I don't think I would put it on him because I just run him for pure support, right? I'll be honest, I'd rather have the particles because a lot of teams I heavily rely on him having Favonius Lance. Artifacts, pretty generic. 4-set Millilith, just pretty generic artifacts that kind of cater towards this all-support build. Talents, double crown. I don't know why I crowned his burst, but I did. Honestly, most of the reason why I do use it nowadays is because I just need something to fill the time in between rotations, and then all my other characters' stuff is on cooldown, so I'm just like, okay, let me just press burst and get something done in the meantime. It has a cool animation, I'll give it that, but, you know, obviously, his main appeal comes from his shield. You know, fattest shield in the game still. You know, you hold E, you don't lose, basically, in 90% of scenarios. For the most part, his shield can tank basically every hit in the game. Constellation 1, I do plan on getting C2 if I could. C2 is really good for any co-op scenarios, or just if the shield happens to break during the 12 seconds that you know, his E is on cooldown, then I can just press his burst and get it right back. Next up is Bennett. Bennett, my Bennett right now is on a really scuffed build just because I'm trying to change stuff around to make him heal enough for this team to work properly. Just Furina, Zhongli, Bennett, and just always have Furina on the Uzia mode so that she can do damage as opposed to only healing. He's a little bit scuffed. He's pretty easy to build, right? Just get HP, get recharge. If you want to build him for damage, then do crits. He's got Scour Blade, pretty generic noblesse sets, and my artifacts are pretty horrible right now, but here's what they are. This is not maxed. I should probably do that. But again, I don't have any fodder. C6 because I don't care. Most of the teams I use them in benefit from it, or if they don't benefit from it, then they don't care about it anyways because they have infusions that can't be overwritten. I don't have Yola, so therefore C6 is actually just a straight up buff for me. Talents, I double crowned him because I thought this was funny because it did more damage than a single Diluc E. Next up, Itto, another one of my favorite characters to use. Honestly, I just like him for the novelty of he does big damage while I don't have to think. I just kind of press stuff and it works. He's really simple and clean. You know, 72, 238. I know I have a lot of recharge, like way too much recharge, but I don't have anything else to fit him better, so that's what I'm sticking with. Weapon is the Redhorn Stone Thresher at R1. Got this, it was a lucky break because I could have gotten something else and gotten heavily cucked. I think it could have been Memory of Dust, which ironically enough, I do also have. This is also another great shame of this account. You know, the gacha gods can always be nice, right? He's on 4 Husk of Opulent Dreams. Here are the pieces. They are pretty middling. They could be a lot better, but I think for where he's at right now, he's okay. He's at Triplet Crown. I like him a lot, right? And every part of his moveset does damage, so helps with his damage at least. So I just thought, why not? He's really cool, and I like his personality a lot. I vibe with him a lot. He is at C0 though, because honestly, he's fine at C0. I would like C6 because Unga Bunga, I have to think even less. Not one of my highest priorities because honestly, C6 5-star anyone is not really a higher priority for me. The only one that I've come close to considering as strongly as I have is Furina because her C6 is absolutely insane on top of like the C2, right? No, Itto's fine. Itto's great. I like him a lot. He does his job, and I use him when I don't want to think. Albedo, basically Itto support. I remember getting him after skipping Zhongli on his original run because I got Albedo on his original run, which was not the greatest idea at the time because he didn't have most of the stuff he has now, right? He didn't have this, nor did he have this. He was on a prayer and a half. You had to try really hard to make this character viable. Yeah, that was a mistake at the time, I think, but it all kind of worked out because I have everything to make him work. He is on 4 Husk with Cinnabar R5 because this is basically his best weapon. Unfortunate to those who want him but can't get this weapon anymore because it was an event weapon for some reason. Sure, Hoyoverse. He's at C0. I don't really care to get his constellations. He does his job. I crowned his skill because I don't know why I crowned his skill. Next up, Wanderer. Yeah, I pulled him because he looked fun. Oh yeah, one thing to note about me, by the way, I don't like Xiao. I don't like Xiao at all. He has too many handicaps from keeping him from being good. It is insane. The barriers, the fences you have to jump to make that character good. So you know what? In that respect, I like Wanderer more because he's basically like a DPS-oriented Sucrose, to where he can still run VAV and do all the swirling stuff with like the res reduction and stuff like that, right? But he can also just be an on-field like hyper carry as well. So that's really nice. You have options. And guess what? Too, he's not burst dependent. Xiao is completely burst dependent. So that is not great. But no, I like Wanderer a lot, albeit there's very like few situations where I want to bring him out in compared to other characters, and that want sort of flickers a little bit more with the Abyss rotations. But I mean, I think I have a pretty decent build on him. His weapon is the Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds. About one of the only few characters that this weapon actually sees his full potential on, because he stays on field for a long time, right? So he gets more elemental damage bonus, the longer he stays on field. So that's really nice. And on top of that, the 33% crit rate. He's on 4 DPC. I managed to get this like relatively quickly. like 2 weeks after I got him. It's not the best set in the world, right? It's serviceable enough to where I don't really feel the need to go back and farm more. Although I probably will eventually, but that's only when I feel like using him more. He's fine, like I said, but not that high on my priority list. He's rocking 998 for talents. You know, obviously his normal attack and skill are the most important parts, and then his burst is kind of, you know, it does damage, but I'm not gonna say that it's the most important part of his kit because it's really not. Moving on, Kazuha. I mean, most of the reasons I pulled him are the same as I described on my free-to-play account, so I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details. I'm just gonna go through the stats. He's got 852 EM. You know, I primarily also build him for EM on this account as well, just because honestly, I see very little reason to build him like a traditional DPS because this build is basically damage build to me, right? Because you just get a lot of EM, so you can benefit the rest of your team. And then my crit rate, I have decent crit rate on him so that I can get his Favonius activations, because I'm also running Favonius on this account. For Viridescent, here's what the pieces are looking like. This was absolutely insane. I could not have scripted this even if I tried. Yeah, but here are the rest of the pieces. This one's kind of mid. Could have been a lot better. C0, I would like to get C2, but, you know, he doesn't come back very often, so whatever. I mean, he works perfectly fine at C0. I'm not too hard pressed about it. If I could, C2 plus freedom is what I would want. Then his talents are at 9, 10, 10. I mean, everyone has talked Kazuha up, so I'm not gonna bore you with the same thing. Next up, Venti. He is washed as hell. I'm also not the first one to say that. 55, 187. He would have a better stat distribution, but I need to build other characters that are more important than him. And plus, I only use him for early floors of Abyss resets, like floor 9 and 10, when there are small enemies that I can just group up and just call it a day. That's kind of all I see him as, is just the early floor Abyss clearer. Scarred Harp. I still keep the 4 Viridescent because this set is kind of like a make or break for a lot of animal characters. I mean, the only set, really. Constellation 0, I ass-pulled him the first time, and I don't plan to do so for any more copies of him, so he's staying at C0, but then again, he's perfectly fine at C0. Talents are at 7 and 8. Obviously, his burst is the only thing you really need. Level it up if you feel like it. If you don't, then that's perfectly fine too. All you need to do is level him. So I brought him to 90 for the maximum swirl damage. Next up is Jean. Now this Jean build might seem a little bit unusual to you, but that's because I built her for a specific reason of pairing her with Furina so that she can maximize her fanfare stacks as fast as possible. So to this end, that's why I just cranked up her crit rate, cranked her energy recharge, and cranked her attack. Gave her Favonius so that I can get extra particles so that she can have her burst up extra often, and gave her Viridescent Venerer. Here are these stats. So I just kind of run ER main stat here, attack, and then crit rate. This would be healing bonus if I had it, but I don't. And I also need this to force the set as well, so I kind of have to keep her in crit rate. Not that I'm complaining though, because it does enough. Constellation wise, she's at C3. She's a standard character, so do not be alarmed. However, I will say this. I've gotten every single copy of her from an event character banner. So every single copy of her, I've gone through a 50-50 loss. I know that sounds really painful because it really is. The first copy of her I got on original Ganyu banner. The second one I got on Kazuha's original banner. C2 I got on Ridesley's banner. Didn't get him either, and I really wanted him. And then this one I got on the Navia banner. Not that I'm complaining about constellations for her, because most of them are really good. Besides maybe like C6. C6 is kind of eh. C3 though, really nice because that way my burst can be at level 11, so it's basically more than a crown. Honestly, to me, this is fine where it's at. But yeah, no, she's at 888, and I'm fine. Next up, Ganyu. I'll be honest, I pulled her for a purely meta reason. I don't see how anyone can have fun playing this character. Aside from the big numbers that she produces, I don't really see any fun in charge shotting. It's just really slow and boring, but you know what? I mean, mine's built, right? Mine's built, just because she is that OP, and then I can slot her into a team. She clears a lot of content in the game, so I'm not complaining against it. It's just, if I'm looking for a lame option to clear, then I'll use Ganyu, because she's not that fun to play. Still very powerful, nonetheless. 1999 attack. It's a little annoying to look at, but it's fine. 329 EM. 62% crit rate, 196 crit damage. Crit rate is more or less fine because of her A1 passive, where she gets 20% crit rate from doing a Frost Flake. So you get 20% for free. So this 62% is actually 82% because I don't use anything else on her but her charge shot, basically. But I leveled up her skill and burst anyways. This charge shot does a lot of damage because you combine these two numbers together and they do almost the damage of a burst or even more. She does insane damage. But again, you know, not my favorite character to play. She's at C1 because I randomly ass-pulled it. I randomly willed it into existence and I have C1. I mean, of course, C6 would be nice because you do the skill, charge shot, skill, charge shot. That's really cool, right? At the same time, though, that's C6. And I don't like this character enough to pull 7 copies of her. I mean, eventually, if I've got the extra pulls, I'll do it, but at the same time, it's not highest priority or anything like that. Next up, the disappointment, Cyno. I only say that because he's basically Keqing, but in my opinion, kind of worse because he's so burst reliant and there's very few support abilities that actually help him achieve what he's actually capable of because of him staying on field for way too damn long and having way too long of a cooldown to match that long duration, right? Because you can basically extend his burst duration up to 18 seconds and the cooldown is 20. So if you swap him out earlier than that, you lose a lot of damage and it falls off a cliff very quickly. Even though I say that, I did crown him just to do a comparison of like how fast he is compared to other characters and how viable he is to actually use compared to other characters. And honestly, like, he does his job. At the same time, there are other characters that can do similar or better than him. I originally pulled him because he looked cool, and that kind of ended up being the only reason why I pulled him, because like in terms of power, Keqing is very similar, if not better, because she's not entirely burst reliant. He's on deathmatch, not even a full set because I don't care to. I don't have enough artifacts to go around, basically, so I don't have a set to give to him. Plain and simple. Next up, Keqing. I talk about her, and she was my first 5-star on this account, actually. First 5-star, she was garbage back before Dendro. She was just not that great before Dendro, but now with Dendro, she's actually pretty fun to play. I mean, okay, her playstyle was never the problem for me. It was more of what teams she could work with, because your best option was electrocharged, and that was not all that great. It still isn't, in my opinion. Either that or physical, and physical was, unless your name is Yola, physical is just not viable in the slightest. I didn't really like either of those, so I ended up benching her for a long time, but now she's actually built. So we got 1805 attack, 147 EM, 70 to 255. Okay, so funny story, right? I ended up pulling this weapon because I was closer to Pity on the weapon banner at the time, and I also pulled for Alhaitham, but that didn't happen because I ended up getting Daya instead. So now Lo-Fi is just sitting on Keqing. It does reasonably well. Obviously not to the level of Mist Splitter, but you know, it's fine. I mean, I don't have that many options for swords on this account, so I'm just using this. Besides that, she's on 4 Thundering Fury. Here are the pieces. They're pretty middling pieces, honestly. They could do better. I mean, they're fine. They get me to a pretty decent stat ratio, so I don't have too many complaints about it. Besides, my flower could use some crit damage on it, but that's fine. It's whatever. Constellation 2, talents triple crown, so Keqing mains can get off my ass. Next up, Nahida. Nahida's Nahida. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you expect. I built her sort of hybrid. I wish I had more crit rate, but Deepwood doesn't want to be nice to me. Build her however you want. EM Dendro crit, EM crit. It doesn't really matter, but mine's on Widzith with Deepwood memories. Here are the pieces. This is pretty good. This is okay. This is okay. This is and then this is good. Constellation 0. You don't really need constellations on Nahida. She works perfectly fine to C0. 8, 10, 10. Ayato. Man, this character is so boring. I got him because his animation looked cool when he does his Shinsuikens slashes and stuff. But my god, is he so boring to play, because all you gotta do is just burst whenever you got it, use your skill, and then just hold left click. It's really mindless. I say that, but he has gained some proper use on my account. My only use case for him is when I want to play Tartag, but feel really lazy about it. So I just use Ayato instead. Ayato is my lazy cop-out for Tartag. It's not as if I don't feel like playing him, it's just I don't feel like thinking, so I just use Ayato. He does most of the same things, besides the Riptide, upgrades and all that, but, you know, in a very mundane fashion. He's still built, so, you know, I didn't cheap out on that. He's got, you know, 1944 attack, 54 EM, 7208 for his crit ratio, 142 recharge. You know, pretty good build overall, I think. Serviceable, at least. Black Sword are 4, because his weapon options suck. And he's on 4 Gladiators, because Echoes is not worth farming. C0, he's boring, so I only got 1 copy of him. For talents, I have double 9, because he's not worth the crown. Honestly, he does his job right here. Honestly, he would have done his job either way if I didn't level up his talents at all, because he's just there to apply Hydro. He doesn't do any personal damage. In most cases, he doesn't do personal damage. Whatever. Next up, Yelan, another one of my favorite characters to use on this account, because unlike the one on my free-to-play account, this one's decked the hell out. So, her stats are 35k HP, 70 to 224, and 152 recharge. Now, you might be thinking that's kind of low, but let me show you a few other things before you come to that conclusion. Her weapon, of course, is the Aqua Simulacra. Without it, I don't think the stats are achievable. Artifact-wise, she's on 4 Emblem of Severed Fate, because it's not C6, so it's like, okay, this is basically the only artifacts that you should go for. The reason why my crit is a little bit low considering Aqua is because I have an HP Circlet. I've done a fair amount of testing already, both mathematically and in-game, and it turns out HP Circlet's actually better for her. Now, because she scales purely off of HP and that there aren't many HP boosting sources, you know, HP Circlet is actually better because you get to boost her base damage before it gets transferred over to the crit calculations. So what that means is HP main stats are actually huge. Not just for her sands, obviously, but also for her Circlet. You can actually run an HP Circlet if it's of similar quality to the crit one you have, because it'll just straight up do more damage. Because it takes a lot for HP scaling to actually diminish. Although, in my case, the difference is actually really significant to the point of like being like 10k per hit or something like that, right? So, HP Circlet, for those of you that don't know, is actually a very, very considerable option. And it can be very similar or better than crit. Now, the reason why my recharge is a little bit low, considering Yelan's absurd requirements, is because I have C1. C1 essentially shaves off 30% off her energy recharge requirement, because you can just double funnel her own skill uses. Not to mention, you get to do more damage with this constellation, which is why it's good as well. And, you know, overall traversal, you get to use 2 skills, and you get to go double the distance as well. So, you know, a very nice quality of life constellation overall. Next up, talents, Triple Crown, because she is extremely fun, and she does a lot of damage. So, yeah, I thought this was really worth it. I would say to not crown her normal attack even for the breakthrough barb until you have an Aqua, because before that it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage to make it worth it. But after Aqua, like, definitely. She does damage on every one of her talents, and even like her breakthrough barb to some extent, right? If you get the RNG check, then you can just get like 20k for free. Next up, Diluc is the joke on this account. Unintentionally, but he's my joke. I coped for so long trying to hope this guy becomes better than Hu Tao, but that's just not possible. Like, I'm sorry to myself to say, that'll just never happen. I've just come to acceptance that he is just forever mediocre. It's unfortunate because he looks so cool. This skin looks so cool, and his gameplay is cool too. You gotta weave in normal text with your skills. It's cool. It's just such a shame that he sucks. So he's got like 2167 attack, 245 EM. His crits are okay. They could be better, but artifact RNG, of course. He's rocking an R2 gravestone because I just refined it because, yeah, sure, it might be better to keep 2 separate copies of this weapon, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't really have much of a use case for it, so I'm just gonna refine it. I gotta make this guy better somehow. Forcer Crimson, the only set for him, really. Once again, the stats are kind of mediocre, but they work. They're serviceable. They get him to do what he can do. I don't really feel hard-pressed to refarm this set for him because he's just not doing much anyways, so what's the point? Constellation 2. His constellations do add a lot to his damage, so I'm hoping to get C6 eventually through 50-50 losses or otherwise. Not that I want to lose 50-50, but if I do, I would prefer it to be him, so that I can actually make him do damage. And now the other part of the joke. He's triple crowned, and he does less damage than Bennett. This character is something else. I want you to be good so badly, but you're just not. Next up, Sucrose. Really standard, right? I mean, I don't think I need to say much about Sucrose. Just full EM, some recharge just to get her burst up sometimes, and then Sec Frag if you're decent. Talents don't matter, but you know, I leveled them anyways. Then C6, pretty standard. Shinobu, I built for Hyper Bloom. So again, she's just max EM, like EM everything, right? EM weapon, EM set with Gilded, and I did level up her skill to level 9 just so that she could heal more per tick. But she has 926 EM. That's the part that matters. And 22k HP, I guess. Next up, Fischl. She's not completely done. I do need to continue building her. Since Golden Troop hasn't been out for too long, I don't really have the best of pieces. But I did manage to get a 4 set on her with okay stats, I think. They're not the best, but they could be a lot worse as well. So 60, 128, 177. LG, one of the best weapons in the game, my god, fulfills her recharge requirement out the butthole, and I don't need to ever run recharge on her ever, but I have some because of stray rolls and stuff like that. 100 EM and 20% attack on the weapon when you hit like a skill burst 4 times, which is really freaking good, right? A lot, and especially now with Dendro, these 2 stats are heavily appreciated in a Dendro team, so very good weapon, and I just put on her because she hits her skill and burst a lot. So it makes sense. Artifacts for Golden Troop, as I mentioned before, like the stats themselves are pretty mediocre. So I need to fix that. But Artifact RNG, woo! Then C6, and talents I have 12 and 10. Next up, Xiangling. Xiangling, we already know the power. Like everyone's raved enough about Xiangling for you to know how OP she is. 57 crit rate, 151 crit damage, 204 recharge, which sometimes isn't enough, but you know, I digress. Xiangling has absurd energy requirements. Her attack is a bit low, but it won't seem like that after you hit a Bennett burst, so it's fine. Weapon is the catch, so that 57 crit rate ends up looking a little bit more like 69. So that's, you know, slightly more where I want it to be, but not quite. But that's because my artifacts, once again, kind of suck. Besides this one's goated. This one's also really nice, but then we move on here, and it's just what... This one has 3 dead stats, so that's not great either. And then my circle is this, which is really good as well. Constellation 6, obviously the big one is Constellation 4 for the extended uptime on the Tornado, which is our biggest source of damage. And speaking of Tornado, I crowned it because Tornado is a really good ability and makes up most of her damage, so I thought it was a good crown. Next up, Xingqiu. The boy Xingqiu is still very OP. I'm sure you've already heard this, but Xingqiu is incredible even with the existence of Yelan because he offers everything that Yelan doesn't. Where Yelan offers damage, he offers survival, like survivability and sustainability. So that's really good. This is a really standard build. I'm really happy about this perfect ratio, basically, is 71-40, which is my baseline, and I love that I have that on him. He's rocking the sack sword, as you would expect. I have way too many of these sack swords, as you've probably seen in the last video as well. But yeah, he's rocking a 4 set of emblem. And it's just pretty standard build. Not much to say. It's just really standard. And I crowned his burst because his burst does a lot of damage. Because imagine this number, but 3 or 5 times over. And that becomes a lot of damage over like a lot of different swings. And then his skill does a lot of damage too, so I just leveled up to 9. And I think that about does it for this account review. If you have any questions or critiques, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below the like button. If I don't upload this by the end of New Year's Eve, well then, Happy New Year, guys. I hope you guys had a wonderful year and, you know, many more to come, obviously. Yeah, it sounds sappy. Very unlike me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hope to see you guys back for another one. See ya.